Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of 6 Degrees of Associations. We're so very excited to have our guest here today, who was recommended to us by David Carnes with Arcstone, if everyone remembers meeting him. And boy, did he light you up in lights, Joan. He really just said, he in fact introduced you to us as JT, which we'll get to in just a moment, and said, trust me, everybody knows her and they know her as JT, and she's a wonderful human being. And boy, has that proven out in my conversations with you thus far. So welcome today, Joan Tezak, better known as JT, with the Colorado Society of Association Executives. Thanks for being here today.
Well, thank you. It's really my honor and pleasure to be able to visit with you and Lucas today.
Well, I love it. You know, as we got started, I'll just kick off the conversation. You're our second association executive that we're speaking with. And what I loved was the angle that you kind of drew me into conversation around, which is, you know, this has been the year of the pivot. A lot of discussion is focused on, oh, how did we go from hybrid to in-person to virtual, things like that. But I love what you picked up on, which was, how did we clean out the closet, so to speak? How did we use this time to be mindful of our association's mission and reconnect it to the things that we're doing? So if you wouldn't mind just maybe kicking us off on that conversation and talking a little bit about how you've spent the last 12 months within CSAE and how it's affected the work that you've been doing.
Well, I think that at first we were all in shock and we thought, oh, in 3 weeks, this will all be over.
Yeah.
So I think our original was, how do we move the programming that we currently had to a virtual base? And we found very quickly that you cannot put a square peg in a round hole. So this really brought out some creativity. And we were able to move a lot of things into what's important now. What do our members need now? And move that into the virtual space. This has also given us an opportunity to stop when we realized it was going to be longer than 3 weeks and really take a look at the whole mission of the organization. And I think that's true of a lot of associations, because the mission is really what drives what we do on a day-to-day and a weekly and a monthly basis. And so by looking at that mission, it's okay, let's stop. What is it that we need to be focusing on now, in the months to come, and then in the years to come? And we also have to be sensitive to budgets, because a lot of our revenue streams that were coming in very, very strong immediately stopped. And so what was bad was really good, because we probably needed to be doing some house cleaning a long time ago, but we just never had the time to do it. And what I have found is that time gave us an opportunity to be creative, to learn new skills, to ditch the old obsolete programs, and to take time to really reinvent ourselves with new technologies. Many of us had heard of Zoom, but we had never really become experts at Zoom until all of this took place, but other technologies as well. And I have found many, many associations that have replaced their AMS, or maybe they added an LMS or other new technologies to plug into what they had. And they are really ready to rock and roll as we now move out of this pandemic. And so that has been some of the positives that I have seen.
Yeah, you nailed it, JT. At Advanza, we manage affinity programs for associations. And the silver lining of it all is it gave us time to pause and really think about, what are the most relevant programs? What should we be focusing on during the pandemic? And that was a lot of gloves and masks and PPE supplies, which we could leverage our relationships with our partners to supply. But also through that, what is going to bring the most value to our associations and their members moving forward? And are there some things that, based on numbers or other metrics, it is time to sunset? And it was a great time to do that. And I think without this, we may not have found that time. Everybody's moving so fast and trying to service everything. And it's easy to sort of chase the shiny things or things that fall into your lap, and you get in a groove and keep going. I was curious, JT, what are those factors when you sat back and looked at your programs that maybe you use to measure and say, if this isn't bringing the right value, or this one might be obsolete? What are some of the things that triggered you to actually sunset some of those programs?
You know, I feel that we went back to kind of the old school marketing and picked up the telephone and actually called our members.
Mhm.
And rather than doing a survey, as we know a survey, it has been calling up the members and listening to where they were at the present time, but what their thoughts were for the present and for the future. And taking that information and through that listening process, really being able to hear what they were wanting out of our organization. You know, there's numerous organizations and you have lots of choices for your time, your money, and your talent. So, what is it that is specific to your unique organization and what do they want? And using that as the driver. And so, I would say that's what we did at CSAE. And I think the most successful organizations were those that had an opportunity, either by volunteers, calling other volunteers, or staff, or whatever. But I think that actual picking up the phone and talking to people and connecting was the important piece. And I'm going to go so far, Lucas, as to say that is a piece that's going to come out of this pandemic that I think is going to stick with us. I think connection is going to be key. And the way that we connect has got to go a little bit further than just electronics.
Mhm.
People want to be connected.
That's
Agreed.
so good. Yeah.
Yeah, and people want a voice, I think, at the same time. So we've also recognized the need not just to push down information and content and what we believe is relevant, but I think as organizations, that sense of pulling feedback back from them and then really using these things up here to respond appropriately. So it's perfect. Well said. Well said.
I'm interested because, something that brought up for me, JT, was thinking about how a lot of associations have talked to us about how their major event was the cornerstone of their communication with their members, right? And I love this idea. I self-proclaim myself as a Luddite. I prefer us to all go back to handwritten notes that we mail in the mail. But I get it that I'm a I'm a Luddite. But I do think that that's a really important thing that you pull through is that maybe there was some complacency being taken on by most associations where it was saying, we can communicate with people with newsletters and emails until that one big event every year. And in reality, that connection does come from, maybe people say Zoom fatigue, but even just, I've always said, like, we could still do phone calls. You and I connected over the phone last week. We didn't have to do a Zoom. We just connected over the phone. And I really appreciated that because I do think that that's something, is that something that you're now, am I hearing it right? That your group may start thinking, how do we put phone calls back into the mix? How do we put a little bit more personal connection back into the mix as opposed to assuming that we'll talk to people sort of once a year in a big in-person thing and then just communicate via email or something like that?
Absolutely. One of the things that we did during this time is we reshaped our ambassador program. Our
Mhm.
ambassador program was always one in which people would meet an individual at the door for an in-person event, and then they would kind of chaperone them around the room
Mhm.
and introduce them to people, and then actually sit with them during a meal function.
Yeah.
That was our ambassador program before. Our ambassador program is now going to be shaped differently so that people actually have about 5 individuals that they connect with on a regular basis to find out how that individual really is doing and what are their career goals. How is the dog and the cat doing? What do they plan to do for vacation? So it really becomes personal because that is really what we're all about. It's that people to people connection. And so we are expanding our ambassador program and taking it in a little different direction. And I think that other associations are looking at how do they leverage their members to bring in other members and make everyone feel connected. The other thing that we are doing is we are looking this year of going back to an in-person conference.
Mhm.
But I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be an in-person conference as we knew it because just as Lucas brought out, we're finding that yes, people want to hear from the experts, but they also want time to share their feelings,
Mhm.
their understandings, their expertise with others. And so our program this year is going to be very much built on opportunities for people to get together and share.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
the sharing is key. It sort of creates this investment on the members' part, where they in turn are giving something of themselves to the association. I always liken this is how Facebook really got sort of created and boomed. Is you started posting your pictures and your comments, and even if a year later you didn't prefer that platform or philosophy or whatever it was, you still can't leave because you have invested yourself so much in there. All of your pictures and everything else are up there. And the idea that you could apply the same principles to the association, if you can get the members to invest in the Colorado Society, either through conversations or input or what have you, there'll be a next level of tying and engagement there that I think will make it maybe a little bit more sticky for them long term, and they'll look to you. My question would be, how do you change that ambassador program, as you said, in this new sort of post-COVID age? I'll call it already. I'm being a little presumptuous on the post, but.
Interestingly enough, as we made this shift and people started to connect one-on-one, it sort of happened from the groundswell. People said, "Oh, you like to golf? Oh, let's get together on Thursday and we'll put together a foursome and we're going to golf." The same way with skiing. For those that were skiers or snowshooters or snowboarders, it just seemed to come naturally. There were people who were dog walkers. And so what they decided is they all needed to go ahead and shed those extra pounds that they were gaining. So, okay, at 10 o'clock, I'm going to call you on my phone as I'm walking Bowser. And you get Fifi out and you can walk around your lake. I'll walk around my lake. We'll talk on the phone. And at the same time, we're getting our exercise, and so is our dogs. So there's just been a lot of creativity that has come out of this.
Yeah, agreed. I love it.
Being healthy and connecting. I love it. You guys are just really, you're pulling it home. You're providing the members with so many different things to think about. I love it. And it's true. Again, we used to, now we're all going to sound like we're aging ourselves, but I remember the day when, that was how you networked. You made appointments. You went out and met someone face to face. You played golf with them. You had lunch with them. You walked with them, whatever it was that you did. And I think that one of the true silver linings of this pandemic that's become apparent for a lot of people across the world is that we want to get on some level back to that type of connection with people. And it's great for you as the society for all the association executives in Colorado to be able to be sort of a leader in that, to lead by example of how to make those connections, which I can only imagine would then trickle down within all of those associations in the way in which they're dealing with their members too.
Yeah.
We even this year started a photo contest. And so because we had, again, from this ambassador program, people who said that we love to go out into nature, we love to snap pictures. And so we said, hey, let's do a photo contest. That was so much fun. We heard from members that under normal circumstances, we would never have heard from. Okay. And it was fun. It was engaging. People shared their photos. And again, it gave people another way of connecting and making the association sticky. And that has been fun. And even today, people said, oh, you're the one that posted that photo. And, oh, I remember that photo.
Right.
Well, what a great idea, too, of just meeting people where they are and not just going all in on one thing on the ambassador program. It sounds like you've really found ways to diversify it so that maybe some people like to walk the dog and some people like to take the pictures, and you got a little something for everybody. I think that's great.
It was fun. It really was fun.
I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'll lob one last question to you. You talked about the ambassador program and how you changed it. Is there something in particular you'd be willing to share that you actually sunsetted, or that you went ahead and put in that, not just in the storage closet, but in the bin out at the curb to go to Goodwill?
A lot of our communications that we had been doing, a lot of our education programs that had a specific target audience, but it needed to be reshaped. We knew that it needed to be reshaped and revamped. We pulled those off of our plate and we put that in the rag bag and we moved that out the door, and we're not going to move it back. I guess that's the thing that is so concerning and be cautionary, and that would be my caution to associations, is after this is all over with, it's going to be so easy to get one or two very vocal members to say, oh, well, now that we're back to normal, let's re-implement this program. And I've got the buy-in from our leadership that we're going to be real cautious on that. And I think other associations should follow the same suit, because you can't bring in new unless you have taken out some of that is just not working and you know it's not working.
That's right. Don't go back out to the curb and pull it in the house.
That's right. Absolutely.
Style was good in the 80s. It doesn't need to make a comeback. Yep.
You got it. You got it.
We have beat that metaphor to the ground. I love it. Well, JT, as I told you last week, I mean, I could just use your Colorado sunshine every day. I love your attitude and all that you were willing to share with us about what you've been doing. And we hope that we'll be able to revisit a conversation like this in the future. But in the meantime, we'd love to hear from you on someone that you would recommend we speak with that could be beneficial to our audience.
You know, I think that Jared, who is the executive director for the Ohio Society of Association Executives, would provide a wonderful, wonderful perspective. I would also recommend our incoming chair, who is Tyrone Adams. He's with the Colorado Realtors Association.
Oh, very cool.
And he has a very interesting story, and I think could be very beneficial. So that would be two of the names that I
got a twofer. I love it. Wonderful.
I love good stories.
Yeah, we do. Well, thank you so much, JT, for your time and your energy and your knowledge just to help individuals at associations think about what can they be, not just pivoting, but what can they be putting out at the curb and bringing in new ideas and fresh ideas. This right here was a great way to think about member engagement for sure. So I appreciate that. Thanks, Lucas, to you too, as always, for being here.
No, my pleasure. Thank you, JT.
And thanks to both of you.